带我们进入真理。
Pray that you would open our eyes to see more of your heart today, more of how you really are, what you really like.
天父，我们感谢你，继续打开我们的心，让我们真正的认识你，你是谁。
And we just give this time to you and offer this up to you and just pray you'd speak to our hearts. Lord, speak to my heart too. I need to hear you as well.
我们将这段时间全然交给手中，祈求你对我们众人的心，也对我的心讲话。
Amen. Did we have the PowerPoint? If it'll come up. If not, I can go without. Okay. So we're going to be looking a bit at what is God really like? What is the Father heart of God like today?
我们今天要看一看，上帝那个究竟是怎么样？上帝为父的心是怎么样？
And I just want to start with this verse in John chapter 6, verses 32 and 33.
我想从约翰福音的6章32到33节。
And it says, Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. And they said, Sir, give us this bread always.
32节说，于是耶稣对他们说：“我实实在在的告诉你们，那从天上来的粮不是摩西赐给你们的，那从天上来的真粮是我父赐给你们的。因为神的粮就是那位从天上降下来，并且赐生命给世界的。于是他对他们说：将这粮赐给你。”
And for many of us here, we probably should take the word bread out and put the word rice in.
对很多中国人来说，应该不是把这个 bread 面包拿掉，应该放到那个米饭。
So from the very beginning of our time together, what do we discover about the Father?
所以我们今天刚刚开始，我们对上帝的那个理解是什么呢？
Is the Father wants to give us bread, rice, the sustenance of life, what we most need in the deepest parts of our souls and for our lives and our bodies as well.
我们发现神是给予粮食者哦，我们给我们中国人来说是给米的，所以是我们肉体的需要，也是我们心灵最深处的需要。
And that shows us, the Father's heart is to give us what we most desperately need to live, to really live.
这个告诉我们，其实我们生命中最需要的是什么？神要给我们。
And it's interesting because Jesus says that this bread, this rice that's coming down from heaven, gives life to the whole world.
这里很有意思的是，主耶稣说，这个天父从天上来的粮食是给全世界的，是给世界人的生命的。
And he was talking about himself.
他谈论的是谁呢？就是他自己。
And so when God wanted to give us the very best, he sent Jesus.
神要将最好的给我们，因此他将耶稣送给我们。
But I don't know about you. I think I grew up going to church. Like I look across the room and we have from maybe 2 years old up till adult. And I spent many meetings in church growing up as a child. And one of the things I often did in church, this is a confession. So for those of you younger ones, it's just true, is we would always have a church bulletin. And I would be drawing on the bulletin. I would be drawing things, designing airplanes.
他说他必须要也跟大家一个悔改的宣告。他说我是小的时候在教会长大的，我小的时候跟这边的很多小孩子一样，但是我当时到了教会的时候呢，不认真听到，常常把教会的那个单张拿出来，然后在那边画他的飞机。
And if I wasn't drawing, if I'm really honest, sometimes I would kind of lean over on my mom and I would fall asleep.
如果那天没画画呢，很可能我靠着我的妈妈睡着了。
And my wife says sometimes now I still fall asleep, but we won't talk about that.
我太太说有些时候我还会打瞌睡，但是今天不谈这个。
But one time I was asleep in church.
有一次我在教会里睡着了。
And I was about your age, sitting right here. About your
对，
age.
他说是跟这个 Alf 的年龄一样。
And I had a dream.
我做了个梦，
And in my dream, this butterfly landed on me.
在梦中有个蝴蝶站在我上面，
And I jumped.
我跳起来了，我大的叫起来，
Everybody in church looked like, what is going
整
on?
个教会师都在看，哎，发生什么事情？
So I share all that because sometimes I think, we come to church and, there's a lot going on and especially when you're young, like, what is really happening? Am I really here? Am I really interested in this stuff?
我这样跟大家讲，就是其实包括你们很多小孩子一样，刚刚父母带来到教会的时候，很多事情都发生。我真的想来这里吗？这事情真的好吗？
So today I want you to use your imagination. I know you don't have pen and paper and crayons.
今天我想小朋友们自己想象，你们没有笔，没有那个捏图的东西。
I want you to imagine for me in your heart when you think about what does God look like? What is God really like? Not just what does he look like, but what is he like?
所以我想让大家去想象一下，哎，上帝是怎么样子的？
And I want you to think about what picture would you draw? I
你
mean,
会画什么图呢？
I know we can't capture God in the picture, but if you were to draw, what would and adults, I want you to do this too. What would you draw?
如果你真的要画一幅关于上帝的图，你会画什么样子的呢？
You think about what is God really like in your heart?
在你心中，上帝真是像什么？
What picture would you draw?
你会画什么图呢？
And just think about that a second. And I'm going to show you a few pictures that other kids drew.
我等下给你看其他小孩子画的图啊。你先想想。
And so it's interesting because this picture here, yeah, this child viewed God. He's got kind of a smirky, angry expression on his face, and he's throwing down, zapping people who are being bad, lightning bolts.
这小孩子心目中的上帝就是说，这个上帝是愤怒的脸，用雷电要击打那些坏人。
And this other picture, though, it's a very beautiful picture. You sense like there's peacefulness. There's maybe God's arms are open wide, so you have a sense that maybe God's loving and kind.
第二幅图呢，好像更加多的平安，这个手伸开，好像很温暖，很有爱。
And this next picture is one of my favorites. I love this because for this child, they imagine that God has really big ears, which means God listens to us. What a great picture of
但是
God.
我喜欢这个图，是因为这个小孩画的时候，这个他们上帝的耳朵很大，所以上帝很想听我们的话。
But all this kind of raises a question, though. If Jesus were to walk in the room right now and look in your face, what would be the expression on his face, and what is he really like? These are different images, but what is he really like?
这些都是不同的图画啊。但是如果耶稣今天走进这里边来看着你的时候，他的表情会是怎么样子的？
And so think about that. But what I want you to imagine is if Jesus were to look at you, what would be his expression? Would
如
he
果耶稣
be?
看见你的时候，他的表情是怎么样的呢？
Would it be like this
像
middle
中间一个
middle picture, where he's angry, he's
他很
disappointed,
愤怒，
looking at you like, I can't believe you did that, or I can't
所以
believe
说
you're.
哇，我真的不敢相信你又是这样子。
And I think if many of us are honest on some level, in some area of our life, we often feel that way. That
我们如果很诚实的话，在某个阶层、某些地方，我们真的感觉像这样子，
that's how God sees us.
感觉上帝就是这样子看我们的。
And with this expression, it's kind of confusing. It's like sometimes we maybe feel like God does love us, but then there are other times when we feel like he just wants to shout at us because he's angry, disappointed at us.
这边另外一侧，左侧这个图片呢，好像是两面，有些时候对我们很高兴，有些时候对我们很愤怒。
But the picture I love the best is this one on the right.
Loving Father.
Yeah.
对，那个你们的左侧那个照片呢，是我最喜欢的。
And you see, it's a dad, and the dad's just so happy to be with his son. The son is so happy to be with dad.
你看那个图，这个爸爸非常高兴跟孩子在一起，孩子非常高兴跟爸爸在一起。
And what I want us to see today as we're together is that not only did Jesus come and reveal to us, show us what the face of God actually looks like.
所以我们今天在一起聚会的时候，我们是向主耶稣，不仅是向我们展现神是怎么样子的，
But he also showed us what this kind of relationship is like, where the Father loves the Son and the Son loves the Father, and they love being together, they do things together.
所以更重要的是，他要来展现我们跟上帝之间的关系是怎么样子的。儿子爱爸爸，爸爸爱儿子。
And we're going to see actually that Jesus died so that his Father could be our Father.
我们也知道，耶稣死了，以至于他的父亲可以成为我们的父亲。
And so that our journey through life is not one where we're working for God and trying to please God. It's a journey of being with a loving Father who is always with us and always working around us.
所以我们的人生的旅程，并不是一辈子就是要讨好上帝，努力的做讨好上帝，而是与上帝同行，他喜悦我。
So you can go to the next slide. And this is from John 14, 1 through 10. And I'll just, if you could read that. Well, I'll read it first in English, and I'll let Daniel read it in Chinese.
这是约翰福音的14章1到10节。David 读英文，我等下读中文。
Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also, and you know the way where I'm going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, and how can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. Listen, no one comes where? To the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and it's enough for us. And Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still don't know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Amen.
你们心里不要忧愁，你们信神也当信我。在我父的家里有许多住处，若是没有，我早就告诉你们了。我去原是为你们预备地方去。我若去为你们预备地方，就必再来接你们到我那里去。我在哪里，叫你们也在哪里。我往哪里去，你们知道那条路。多马问对他说：“主啊，我们不知道你去哪里，怎么能知道那条路呢？”耶稣对他说：“我就是道路、真理、生命。若不借着我，没有人能到父那里去。既然你们认识了我，也会认识我的父。从今以后，你们就认识他，并且已经看见他了。”腓利对他说：“主啊，将父显给我们看，我们就知足了。”耶稣对他说：“腓利，我与你们在一起这么久，你还不认识我吗？看见我的，就是看见了父。你们怎么还说将父显给我们看呢？我在父里面，父在我里面，你不信吗？我对你们所说的话，不是凭着自己说的，而是在我里面的父在做他的工作。”
Thank you, Dan. We can go to the next slide. And so in this passage, we see many things, but two things in particular that I want to draw out briefly.
这个信息很丰富，很多的内容，但是我想要讲两个问题。
The first is that Jesus is saying that he who has seen me has seen the Father.
第一个就是耶稣说：“看见我的，就看见了父。”
So if you want to know what God is like, don't look to religion.
当你想知道神是怎么样的，不要去看那些宗教，
Ultimately, don't even look to the church.
你甚至不要只是去看教会。
Look at Jesus of Nazareth.
你看拿撒勒人耶稣，
Look at who he is and how he loved people.
看看他是怎么样的人，他是怎么爱人，
Look at how he healed.
他是如何医治人，
Look at how he spoke to those that others didn't want to speak to.
看看他是怎么去跟那些别人不想跟他讲话的人讲话。
And when you see both what Jesus said, what he did, and how he related to people, you are seeing the Father.
你看见他说了什么，做了什么，他如何跟人的那个相处，你会知道上帝的性情。
And just a couple of little stories come to my mind, and I'll tell just two for time's sake.
因为时间原因，我想跟大家讲两个故事。
So the younger audience, again, I want you to use your imaginations with me. We're going to go on a little imagination. I want you to imagine these stories as I tell them.
所以小朋友们，我想你们现在要开始想象我刚才讲的故事。
The first story was about a man one day who was very sick.
第一个故事呢是讲一个人病得很重，
And he had this disease called leprosy that made his skin and his die, and ultimately even his fingers would fall off, and eventually he would die from it.
他有个那个身体的疾病，以至于他皮肤上的病，慢慢的手指都可能会掉。
And because he had that disease, he had to stay away from people, and he had to go around saying, "I'm unclean, don't come near me. I'm unclean, don't come near me."
他得了这麻风病，以至于他必须离开人群中，而且见到人的时候就说：“我是不洁净的，离开我。”
And can you imagine, like, if you had to go to school and you had to go around and people could see that you had this skin disease, and you had to say that you were unclean and don't come too close to me? Can you imagine what that would feel like?
你想象一下，如果你去了学校，你有身体的这个疾病，你必须跟人家讲：“哦，我不干净的，不洁净，你不要碰见我，不要靠近我。”你会怎么想？
And the religion then even taught that if anyone was to touch a person like this, that it would make them unclean. It was like it would make them like dirty before God, sinful.
所以按照宗教的要求呢，如果别的人碰了他的人，那个人也会变得不洁净。
But this man heard that this person, Jesus, who had been healing people, was coming by close to where he was.
但是这个人听说，那个耶稣医治了很多的耶稣来到他的地方，
So he went and he went before and he knelt before Jesus. He got down on his knees
他去了，他来到耶稣面前，跪在耶稣面前，
and he said, "Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean."
说主啊，如果你愿意的话，你会洁净我。
Now I want you to hear something in those words, "if you're willing."
我想您要特别注意他的里面是他说，如果你愿意，
He didn't doubt that Jesus had the power,
他没有怀疑耶稣有这个能力，
but he doubted whether God would want to heal him because he saw himself as unclean. He saw himself as less than other people.
他怀疑的是什么呢？他怀疑耶稣是否真的愿意来医治他，因为他知道自己不洁净。
And so what is God really like? He's thinking God is maybe either angry at him or punishing him.
他心目中想的是，上帝可能对他愤怒，在处罚他。
Now I want you to imagine what Jesus does. in
我
this
想让你
story.
想象一下，耶稣做的是什么？
It says Jesus reached out his hand and he touched him.
耶稣伸出手来摸他，
And he said, be cleansed.
他说：“洁净吧。
But not only that, it says Jesus moved with compassion. ”
不仅如此，他说耶稣心里充满了爱。
That as he was extending that hand, not only was he not angry or disappointed with this man, he felt the deepest love and tenderness and compassion for him.
所以，当主耶稣来到这个不洁净的人面前，他不只是没有愤怒，而且是这种爱去触摸这个人。
And this is the face of the Father. This is what God looks like.
这是神真正看起来应该是这样子的。
And wherever you are right now in your life, there may be something where you feel that you're less than other people or you're ashamed of something.
不知道你的生命中怎么样？也许在某些领域，你会觉得很在别人面前很害羞。
Maybe you've even made choices and have sinned against God, have done things that you know are displeasing to God or been dishonest with others.
也许我人生中有些时候做了应该得罪神的事情，
But Jesus looks into your heart and he sees past the disease of the things that maybe we've done wrong or that we feel are inadequate. And he sees your heart and he feels compassion and he wants to touch your heart.
当耶稣看见你的时候，虽然他看见我们生命中的软弱疾病，但是他传递是他的爱，他要来医治。
And he wants to tell you that you are beautiful and precious to him.
他要告诉你说你是美丽的，在他眼中是宝贵的。
He wanted to do that so much that he died on the cross so that he could save us.
他如此的愿意的爱我们，他甚至死在十字架上。
One more story.
第二个故事，
Jesus told a story about a shepherd who had 100 sheep, a big flock of sheep.
耶稣讲的故事说，有个牧人有100只羊，
And one day, the sheep were in the field and they were grazing and they were just, doing what sheep do, eating, sleeping.
所以有一天，这个羊在操场上做羊喜欢做的事情，吃吃睡睡。
But there was this one little lamb, and I'm adding a little bit of the story, but I'm keeping to the facts. This is actually, fits the story Jesus told. But there's one little lamb named Wooly.
我把这故事稍微编一下啊。就有其中一只羊叫做乌里羊，毛毛羊。
And little Wooly was just having the best time. His mama sheep was over here. His daddy sheep was over here.
所以乌里呢，他今天特别高兴，因为他妈妈羊在那边，爸爸羊在那边，他觉得非常高兴。
And he saw this really bright, colorful thing that was kind of going like this across the field.
他看见一个蝴蝶在那边飞呀飞呀，他这边看着。
He'd never seen anything like that, but he was really curious, and what it was a butterfly.
他从来没见过这东西，他不知道这是蝴蝶，但是很美丽，所以跟着走。
Maybe the same one from my dream. No.
也许跟梦中有点像。
But he saw a butterfly and he began to follow it and he began to try to get closer to it.
他看见了这个蝴蝶，一直跟随着蝴蝶跑。
And the further he went, there was a breeze blowing, and the breeze kind of caught the butterfly, and he couldn't keep up with it, but he kept running after it, trying to find it.
风在吹，那个蝴蝶在跑，他就一直在追，一直追，一直追。
And he went and he went, and then all of a sudden there was this big gust of wind, and he just watched that little speck of color just disappear off in the distance.
走着走着，突然间发现风很大，那个蝴蝶消失了。
And then he stopped.
他停下来，
And he looked around.
他往回看，
No mama sheep.
妈妈羊不见了，
No daddy sheep.
爸爸羊不见，
No shepherd.
没有牧人，
And it was getting late, and
已经天黑了。
he had never ever been alone like
他
that.
从来没有单独过。
And he didn't know which way to go. He looked around, he couldn't find the way back.
他左看右看，找不到回去的路。
And he began kind of running, kind of hysterically, this way and that way. And finally, there was this depression in the ground. He just kind of tripped into it, and he just lay there, and he just was.
所以他左跑右跑，到处倒腾，最终他有一个地方不小心摔倒，掉下去，在那边气喘。
And he was so afraid. It was starting to get dark, and he finally, thankfully for his sake, he just fell asleep in that hole.
他虽然很害怕，但是在倒下的地方，也许他就很感恩，是他睡着了。
Well, the story as Jesus told it is the shepherd got back to where he kept the sheep at night, and he was putting the sheep into the place where they stay, and he realized that lamb, one of his littlest lambs, Wooly, was gone. Wooly wasn't there.
耶稣讲这个故事中，牧羊人把这个羊带回羊圈，一个个的数，发现少了一只羊，那只无里小羊不见了。
And it says he left the 99 sheep and he backtracked and he went looking back where he'd been that day, searching.
圣经讲到这个人离开这个羊圈，回到走的地方去寻找。
And he was calling, Wooly, Wooly.
他在大喊，Wooly, Wooly.
And Wooly heard something. He's like, just could barely make a sound.
Wooly 听见了有人声音，他在但是声音太小了。
And Jesus found him. I mean, the shepherd found Wooly, and he reached down, and it's in the story that Jesus told. The shepherd put a sheep on his shoulders like this.
耶稣讲的这个故事中讲到说，牧人找到这只小羊，把它编起来放在他肩膀上。
Now, I want to stop here and say what he didn't do.
我在这停下来，想告诉大家，耶稣没做的是什么
He didn't say, "You stupid lamb, how many times have I told you to not run off?" You're just so dumb. You'll never get this right. You're just an idiot. You're just a loser lamb.
他没错是这样子，没有说你这只失败的小羊，我告诉你多少次了啊，多少次你还是这样子，这只失败的小羊。
You know, we laugh, but I think a lot of times when we fail or when we lose our way, we think that that's how God is responding.
我们今天会笑，是因为有些时候，很多时候，当我们失败的时候，我们就觉得上帝就是这样子来对我们的。
But no, he picked Wooly up and he carried him right here, right close, all the way back.
他没这样做，他是把这羊捡起来挂在肩膀上回去，
And he put Wooly back in with Mama sheep and Daddy sheep and all the other sheep.
所以把这个羊放回妈妈羊、爸爸羊还有其他的羊身边。
And the shepherd was so excited that he had found his lost lamb that he went around to all his neighbors and said, "Hey guys, we're going to have a party. Come on, we're going to have a party. Come on over."
所以那个牧羊人太高兴了，他就跟其他的牧羊人说：“你看，我们今天一起庆祝一下，因为我那只迷失的羊找到了。”
And so not only was he not angry and disappointed in Wooly, he was delighting and thrilled to have his lamb back, so much that he had a big celebration over the lost lamb.
他不仅没有批评，没有责怪，没有谴责那个羊，而是因着找回了这只羊，与众人一起来庆祝。
And this is the face of God that Jesus reveals.
这就是耶稣向我们展现的上帝的脸，
This is the God of Jesus,
这是我们耶稣的父神，
not the God of religion.
并不是宗教的神。
And so whether you're 2 years old or 80 years old, I find that I need to see afresh this face of God. I need to look at Jesus and see what God is really like and say, Lord, show me what your Father is really like.
不过你今天是2岁还是70岁，真是对我来说，我就这样很想，就是神将这种同志向我们显示他是怎么样子的神。
And so I would give you a challenge. This would be an invitation, a challenge.
我想给大家这个挑战，当然也是个邀请。
Is over this fall, going into the fall and over the next months, I would encourage you to spend time in the Gospels and just read and look and see and pray, Lord, who are you? Just what Paul prayed on the road to Damascus. He said, who are you? Pray that prayer. And
我想给大家一个挑战，这个接下来2个月秋天的季节，我们大家都一起来读那个4福音书，而且在读的时候呢，就像在大马士革的保罗一样说：“主啊，你是神。”所以一直在读“主啊，你是神。”
And I think you're going to begin to discover an amazing picture of God, that he is more loving than you could ever imagine.
我相信你会发现，神的性情，神比你想象的更加的慈爱。
That he is more good. That's not correct English, but he's more good than you could imagine.
他会比你想象的更好。
And I think you're going to discover too a God who pursues you, that no matter what you do, he will never leave you or forsake you.
而且你会发现，你在寻一个正在寻找你的神，不管你怎么样，他不会放弃你，不会离弃你。
You know, I grew up, as I said earlier, going to church on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, and Wednesday nights. We would go to church.
我长大的时候，星期天早上去教会，晚上去教会，和星期三晚上去教会。
Now you can see why I slept in church.
就可以看见我为什么在教会睡着了。
But in my family, with my mom and dad,
我的爸爸妈妈看来，什么东西都不是不好的。
there were many times when my mom and dad at home would be screaming and yelling at each other, and my dad would throw things.
很多时候，我看见我的爸爸妈妈，大声喊叫，我的爸爸甚至把东西砸了。
And some years later, my parents divorced.
有些年之后，我的父母离异了。
Which when I was, up until they divorced, it was one of my biggest fears in life, is that they would divorce, even though they were so unhappy together.
到他离婚之前，我生命中的最大的害怕就是他们要离婚。
But in the U.S., in the South where I live, we have these thunderstorms, which are rainstorms, and it can rain 2 inches in an hour. I'm not exaggerating. And the lightning crashing and thundering.
在我所在的美国那个地方呢，常常有暴风雨，暴风雨大到就是每个小时有2英尺的雨下来。
And so in my home growing up, it was like that. It's like if a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and things were kind of okay between mom and dad, I would begin to get anxious because I knew a thunderstorm was coming in our house. There's going to be fighting and everything.
如果在我的家中呢，当我知道如果说有1个星期或2个星期平静的话，我的下次就期待着恐惧下一次家庭的风暴要到来。
But I want you to know that I can remember distinctly. I probably was 7 years old.
我大概在7岁的时候，我还能记得。
And my mom and dad are in the other side of the house, and the yelling is going, and I know my dad's going to leave, come back, who knows when.
所以在我的另一个房间，爸爸妈妈在吵架，然后爸爸会离开，不知道什么时候回来。
I remember laying in my bed, tears coming down my face.
我想到自己躺在床上，眼泪不断的流。
And somehow, by God's grace, I knew that Jesus was with me.
但是我一定程度上感觉到耶稣在陪着我。
He was there, and he was real, and he loved me just like he loved that little lamb.
他就在那里，是很真实，就像他爱那只故事中的小羊一样。
And there have been so many times in my life when it seemed the darkest, and there's brokenness in my life or brokenness in others around me. And this is the Jesus of my journey who comes in with compassion and love and doesn't leave me and is there.
我就想像我这样的一只小羊一样，耶稣来找我，关怀我，永不放弃我。这就是一个耶稣的形象。
And he gives me his father for my father.
他用他的父爱给我，
His God for my God.
他的神做我的神。
And I had planned another point to the message, but I'm going to cut it short because I think we need to not say too low.
我想要讲另外一点，但是我会讲简短一点。
But I just want to just mention this as next time maybe I come back, we can pick up here.
所以我现在稍微讲一讲，那我下次回来的时候再讲深入一点。
But as you begin to look at Jesus and as you begin to see who God is through him, you're going to see something amazing.
如果你认真去看耶稣是谁，神是谁，你会非常的惊讶。
And you see little evidences of it, like when Jesus is a little boy at 12 years old and he's in the temple and his parents don't know where he is. 3 days, they don't know where he is. If your parents lost you for 3 days, they call the police, I'll tell you.
圣经讲那个耶稣在圣殿中的时候，12岁在圣殿中3天没有见他父亲，他父母会很担心。今天如果你的孩子，你爸妈3天没见你的话，他会告警察的。
So if you've been lost for 3 days and then your parents found you, they probably would be first hugging you and then they'd be kicking you.
如果你迷失3天，可能妈妈见到你一开始抱一抱，等下就开始踢你。
But Mary said, Jesus, what were you thinking? We were worried about you.
但是 Mary 说，玛利亚说，那个，你在哪里？我为你担心了。
Jesus said, he was perplexed. Didn't you know that I would be in my Father's house?
但耶稣说，你真的不知道吗？我应该在我父亲的家中。
And actually the expression he used was, didn't you know I would be about my Father's business? That I would be caught up in the work of my Father?
然后他那个表达的意思是，你真的不知道吗？我会要关心我父亲的事情。
And as you look at Jesus all through his life on earth, you see him sneaking away. They've lost Jesus again. They can't find him. Where's Jesus?
你可以看到耶稣的成长的背景，耶稣迷失了。
They'd be searching for him. Where is he? Where did Jesus?
他们在哪里？他们在哪里？
And it says that he went off to a lonely place to
他去
pray.
到一个安静的地方去祷告，也跟他父亲在一起。
And he even says that the works that I do are not my works, but the Father with me. The words I speak, it's the Father speaking to me, and I'm speaking to you. There was this intimate closeness that Jesus carried all the time.
所以耶稣甚至说：“我说的话不就是我自己说的，乃是我的父在我里面说的。他跟父是很亲密的、合一的。”
And so when we look at Jesus, we not only see who God is, but we see the relationship that Jesus died to give us, that's our birthright as children of God.
所以当我们看见耶稣的时候，我们就看见他是神，我们也看见他因着死在十字架上，给了我们的那个出生的权利，我们是神的儿女。
I'm sure I have many more things that I could say or would like to say, but God is able to say them to you without me, so I'm going to stop here.
我想有很多事情我想跟大家讲，但是我相信神可以不用我，可以对你说很多的话。所以今天就讲到此。
But I want to end with this verse.
我想用这篇经文跟大家解
It's
说
one of my favorite verses in the Bible.
这是我最喜欢的经文。
And these are words that Jesus said. He said,
这是耶稣说的话。
Don't be afraid, little flock.
你们这小群啊，不要害怕。
For it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom.
因为你们的父乐意将国赐给你们。
And the kingdom is an intimate relationship where he reigns and rules in your heart, and you're on this adventure with this amazing God who is giving you more and more freedom every day and taking you deeper into life with him.
而这个国在你的生命中是怎么样子的？是他很亲密的在你的生命中掌管你的一切，引导你去活出丰盛。
You know, it's great we can come to church.
非常美好，我们可以来到教会。
I love worship, especially on Mondays when we have House of Prayer. It's a
我很喜欢
wonderful
敬拜。
time of worship here. Really, if you ever get the opportunity to come and aren't coming, we'd love to have you. We usually start around 12 on Mondays and go, and Monday evenings too now, I think.
我很喜欢每个星期来到这边，在敬拜的时候，12点钟来这里敬拜的时候，真的是非常美好。我很想鼓励大家，星期一白天或者是晚上都可以来敬拜。
But sometimes I feel like we get into a pattern of we need to come to church to have an experience that helps us get through the rest of the week so we can come again.
有些时候我们好像感觉我们需要来到教会来充电，以至于接下来一个星期都有力。
It's like putting gas in the gas tank, and then we're going to go all week, and we'll come back and get more gas in the gas tank.
就像那个汽车这边加完油，汽车都没有了，又回来加油。
Now, in one sense, I need gas in my gas tank, so I'm going to be here, and I'm thankful for whatever God gives me when we're together.
当然，我们人生就像开车一样，我们的确需要油，我也需要主耶稣来生命中给我们加油。
But what Jesus shows us about God and what this passage is talking about, him giving us the kingdom, is that he wants to give us the reality of his presence every day, in every situation, in every moment.
但耶稣这一节就会告诉我们是，他要让他的国在我们中，他要在我们生命中展示，我们天天的体验它，享受它。
At school, at work, at play, everywhere.
在你的学校，在你的工作，在任何地方，他在你生命中。
He wants to open our eyes to see that we live in a world where God is moving all around us, and he is pursuing us, and he's shepherding us.
他让我们打开眼睛，能够看见我们活在一个他如此真实的爱我们，如此真实的掌管我们、引导我们的一个世界里。
Especially for those of you who are in, let's say, 6th through 9th grade.
特别是那些小学6年级到9年级的小孩子们。
I was suspended from school in 7th grade because somebody started to fight with me, and I didn't want to fight them, but I felt like I had to.
我7年级的时候曾经被学校开除了，因为有人要跟我打架，我虽然不想打，但是不得不打了。
Worst year in my life.
那是我人生中最糟糕的一年。
I'll tell you the story next time.
下次跟你讲下个故事。
But Jesus was there when no one else was.
没有别的人在的时候，只有耶稣在。
So I don't know what's going on with your school or your life. I know you're vacation right now.
我不知道在你们的学校、你们的孩子的生命中，当然现在是假期，你的生命怎么样？
Many of you live kind of between the British culture and the Chinese culture or another culture.
你们很多人都活在一个叫做香蕉时代。
But Jesus knows, and he is with you, and he sees, and he is not going to leave you.
耶稣知道他与你同在，他知道你的光景，他不会放弃你。
He just wants to take you up in his arms like that lamb, just hold you close to his heart.
他愿意把你扶起来，放在肩膀上，像那只羊一样。
Father, thank you for giving us bread, giving us the rice of Jesus who gives life to us every moment of every day.
天父，我们感谢你是主耶稣给我们从我们生命中的粮食，引导我们每一天。
Lord, I pray in the weeks and the months ahead that you would open the eyes of my heart to see you more and to apprehend more of who you really are.
我想在接下来几个月的时间，让我们几个星期的时间，让我们能够打开眼睛，能够看见你是谁。
Lord, I pray that we could discover you in every moment of every day, that your presence is real, that your life is there, that you are with us, that we are not alone.
在接下来就是让我们能够真实体验到，你就在我们生命中，我们不孤独。
And thank you, Jesus, for loving us so much that you went to the cross.
主耶稣，我们感谢你如此的爱我们，以至于死在十字架上，
so that you could take all of our failures and all of our sin,
以至于你可以将我们所有的失败，我们所有的罪，
not only give us a place in heaven, but give us your Father.
不仅仅让我们有天国的福分，而且将你的父亲给我们，
So that your Father became our Father and your God became our.
你的父亲成为我们的父亲，你的神成为我们的神。
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Very talking about this. Expecting that song. Thank you. Yeah. Will we take up the challenge from David? 我们会接受 David 的那个挑战。接下来的夏天的几个星期，我们一起要来读四福音书，常常问你是谁，认识你是谁。So we will take up. I hope we can take up the challenge from Pastor David that in the coming weeks in summer, and let's read the 4 Gospels and asking God who you are. Yeah. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so good.